This is a long video. I left it long because I wanted it to be a thorough discussion of how I performed this conversion and did not want to fly through it too quickly. Disclaimer: this will most certainly affect your warranty on your XLR top handle. I don't make any recommendations, only that it would be wise to only perform this conversion if you do not plan to use your XLR top handle in its current configuration and want to be able to have more flexibility in how or where you mount your XLR box. This is not a difficult conversion. However, it is easy to make a mistake and permanently damage your XLR handle. Proceed with caution.
This looks like an XLR-K3M. It smells like an XLR-K3M. It sounds like an XLR-K3M. No, I'm not going to taste it. But this is not an XLR-K3M. This was originally the XLR handle from my FX3. And here's how I did it. Disclaimer, let's just get this out of the way. What I do to my camera, what I do to my XLR handle is, it's what I do to it. I'm showing you how I accomplished this. Successfully turned my XLR handle into an XLR-K3M so I could modularly place this in different locations based on my need. I don't have a need for the XLR top handle in its current configuration that it comes from Sony. I am slightly disappointed that Sony didn't make it more modular. I know lots of users feel the same way. There may be lots of users that are in the same boat as I am when it comes to the planned use of the XLR, or should I say, the planned non-use of the XLR handle, and then it just kind of becomes a paperweight at that point. My FX3 is going to go inside of a rig with a aftermarket or non-Sony top handle. So subsequently, I plan to use the MI shoe with the MI extension cable and my newly created hybrid XLR-K3M box to do embedded 4-channel audio in my videos. But this gives me the flexibility of placing this lots of different places on my rig. And utilizing the top space and the top portion of my FX3 for whatever I deem appropriate. It's not as easy as removing the screws and removing the HDMI door on the FX3 and the A7S3 that I've done previously. This is a little bit more daunting. So if you are not comfortable with mechanical ability, if you're not comfortable with electrical components, if you don't want to ruin ribbon cables, which are extremely fragile, then I would highly recommend don't do this. I would only make a modification if you are not planning on using your handle and it is simply going to take up space. This is a way to potentially make use of that XLR handle if you don't want to use it as a handle. With that said, let's hop right into this. So I'm going to kind of work a little bit backwards here. I'm going to pretend like this was originally on the handle. This is the top handle piece that this normally mounts on, like this. And you'll see on this, on the top handle portion, there are essentially 4 screws. Inside of this, inside of this XLR box, there are 4 screws that hold it to the top of the XLR handle. I'm going to be disassembling this but pretending like it's still on here and walk you through where those screws are, and it would be the same as if it was on top of your XLR handle. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to remove these two screws on the bottom, this screw that is underneath the mic holder that has to be removed. The mic holder is really easy to remove. You just you open up the mic holder and you'll see two screws down in there. You simply unscrew those two screws and the mic holder comes off. Once you do that, you have access to this screw tunnel where there's a screw at. Then you're also going to take out the screw that is here on the side. And then you're also going to remove the screws that are inside the XLR inputs. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll be using my trusty PH00 that I've said in my other videos. PH00 on all of the small screws, and I will be using the PH0, not two zeros, just 1 0, on the XLR screws, which are actually much larger. You can get away with using the PH00 on those screws. It's just a little bit easier to use a slightly larger screwdriver on that. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to take out the XLR screws here first. Now the ones that come off of the bottom, they are shorter and smaller than the ones that come off of the side and the top inside the tunnel. So make note of that. It's pretty obvious. You're not really removing lots of screws right now. So if you just keep those separated, you'll remember which ones go with which. All right, so now we have removed all of the screws. Now what we want to do is we're going to pull this face away like this, and then we have to pull the face up over top of the locking levers that are in place. So you're going to pull it up and out and over top. Just be very careful whenever you remove this, because you do have a very fragile electronic component that is underneath. Inside, before you start tugging on anything inside here, there is a ribbon cable that is located right here that you need to remove. So I would highly recommend that you use these rubber-coated forceps to pull out the ribbon cable very gently. It'll come away from it, and just let it sit there and be very, very gentle with it. And then from there, you're able to pull this component out. Now, very carefully, pull it out very slowly, because you're going to run into more ribbon cables, all right? So as you pull this out, now you have your full internal component is out, and you can see you have a ribbon cable. You have a ribbon cable here, and you have a ribbon cable here. So we're going to go ahead and remove those as well. Now, this is, we're going to set this aside. Now, what you have inside here, also on the bottom here, you have the XLR cover and the cable holder just simply slides into these little plastic grooves. This one tends to fall out. This one tends to stay in that. This one falls out because it's kind of floppy and it tends to fall out. Just set it aside. Whenever we put this back together, we're just simply going to slide that back in. It slides into the plastic grooves there. Now, inside here, if you can see it, let me see if I can get good. Inside here, you will see this ribbon cable is coming up out of currently the MI shoe stock, I'll just call it like a stock, or the MI shoe foot, let's call it a foot, this little foot that's coming down out of here. That ribbon cable that you see here, that's the same ribbon cable that you would see inside of your top handle. Your top handle has a slot just like that, and the ribbon cable from the top handle comes up through this little slot in the top handle. It comes up into the XLR box just like this. So this is an identical ribbon cable. The difference is this ribbon cable goes down to the MI shoe that's on this foot. So from here, what you would do is, and this is, it's very important to be very careful at this point. Using your screwdriver, you want to remove all 4 of these screws right here. Right here, right here, right here, and right there. Once you remove those screws, your top handle would pop right down, and the ribbon cable would slide right down outside of that. Then what you do, and I'm going to go ahead and remove this so you can see it. I'm going to be very careful to remove this. You have to be careful when you're putting force on these screws. When you're putting force on these screws to remove them, because you're trying to keep the head of the screw, you have the head of the screwdriver inside the screw, you need to make sure that you're not putting too much pressure, because you don't want to slip off of this and accidentally poke your ribbon cable. That would be bad. You could actually damage your ribbon cable and subsequently have a serious problem if you were ever wanting to put this back on top of your top handle for whatever reason. Let's say you decide to sell your FX3 or something like that, and you're trying to put it back to factory specifications. You wouldn't want your ribbon cable that was connected to your top handle to have been damaged. So it's really important to take your time when you're unscrewing these screws. Don't put a lot of pressure, and don't come off of those screws and run into this ribbon cable or even any of the componentry that is behind on the other side of the face of this XLR box. So what I'm doing right now is just simulating. I'm pretending like I'm still taking it off of my top handle, and I'm removing these screws. Being very careful. All right. Now, once you do that, what you would do is then you would just simply separate this from your top handle and carefully slide your ribbon cable out. And this is essentially what it would look like. It'd look like you were pulling this out of there. Now, the part you need to be able to turn this into the XLR-K3M is this part from Encompass. Encompass is Sony's United States, depending on where you're watching this from, Sony has parts distributors in all the different countries. In the United States, it happens to be Encompass. And on the Encompass website, you can actually pick this part up. When I ordered this part, I kind of ordered it blindly because they have a very cryptic description of it. It's a very cryptic description, and they don't have a picture for it yet. But it said it had shoe in the name, so I thought, well, that might be it. And I tried. I ordered the particular part, and it's exactly what I expected it to be. This is the replacement shoe leg, foot, whatever we want to call it, from an XLR-K3M. This is the part that comes on the XLR-K3M. And Sony's great wisdom is they made it so that this part for them, for their manufacturing facilities, to be able to put the same top on top of this as that they put on top of the top handle on the FX3. Lucky for us, that means we can swap out the handle for this leg, foot, whatever you want to call it, and turn our XLR box that sits on top of our FX3 into a K3M. This is exactly how the part comes in the mail. So what you do is you take this very carefully because of the ribbon cable, is you slide it in to the base, just like that. And now you're going to do the reverse, and you're going to take the screws, which the ones that actually secure the, let me push them up here so you can see them. The ones that actually secure the leg, foot, whatever, to the main body, they're actually silver, all right? So we're gonna go ahead and now put those back in. Now, the same thing applies when screwing these screws back in. The key to making this whole thing work is to take your time, don't put a lot of pressure, have good control of the screwdriver. You don't want to be putting pressure and slip off and damage components in here. So just take your time on each one of these screws. Don't rush. Make sure they are fully screwed in, and then move on. Okay, now that you are done with screwing the leg, foot, thingamabobber on there, now it's time to reinsert your main component here. And what we need to do is we need to connect the ribbon cables. So we're going to carefully take these ribbon cables and we're going to line them up. There's one. There's two. Now, once they've been inserted, now we need to carefully slide this back inside, like so. And then once we do that, take your fingers like this, hold the top end of the metal, hold it inside, don't put too much pressure, and we're going to insert the last ribbon cable. There we go. Now, two ribbon cables are inserted inside. Side ribbon cable is inserted. Now we can put the face back on. So what we're going to do first is replace, put the XLR cover back in the slot here. Now we're going to take this side face plate, and what we're going to do is we're going to put it down. We're going to move that. We're going to kind of push the XLR cable covers out of the way. We're going to bring this down. We need to bring it over top of the XLR locks here. So we just bring it over. We just bring it over top of that, down over top of that, and then we bring it in, and it snaps in. So it snaps in all the way around. We have our cable covers are fine. Now what we're going to do is simply replace our screws. So let's start with the small screws on the bottom. And there you have it. You now have a pseudo, well, it's not really a pseudo. It really is the XLR-K3M. Everything about it is exactly the same. Functions exactly the same. The difference is now you can mount it both on the MI shoe, on the FX3. You can mount it on an A7R4, an A7S3. You can use it now on any Sony mirrorless camera that has the MI shoe capability. The A7R4 and the A7R3, you only get 2 channels of audio, but you can still make use of the XLR inputs. But with the addition of the XLR-K3M's MI shoe extension cord, which you can also get, and I will show in a future video, which will kind of be part 2. It'll be me making use of this and showing how you can use the functionality of this now across multiple cameras and in multiple configurations within a rig. With the combination of this and that extension cable, you now have remote 4-channel input for your FX3 or A7S3 or other cameras, but essentially the FX3, because this came as the top handle. But now it is much more functional for the FX3 owner. So let's go ahead and test this out really quick and check and make sure that everything is working, and I can show you how you're getting the 4 channels of audio. I will hook up 4 different sets of inputs to this so we can see all of the different inputs. All right, so here we have the FX3 with the module that I just built on top of it in the MI shoe. What we have is we have the Rode Wireless Go input in the 3.5 millimeter input, which is your channel 3 and 4. The Rode Wireless Go is outputting a regular channel and a safety channel. So you'll see the difference in the decibel output here. As well, we have the Rode Video Mic NTG is going into the XLR1 and XLR2 input. It also is splitting out a regular channel and a safety channel. So I've got 4 channels being monitored and input and recorded on the video channel just as the XLR handle would function. So there you have it, how to create an XLR-K3M module from your XLR handle of your FX3, and watch for part 2 of, I'm going to call it roughly part 2 of this video, where I show a more in-depth use of this along with the extension cable and how to get the extension cable. And other than that, I hope you liked this video. I hope it was helpful. Please like it down there. If you liked it, please subscribe. I've got lots of more stuff coming. Other than that, I will catch you in the next one.